We are jumping right into the middle of a hand to start this vlog, and as you can see, it's a double board bomb pot. I have pocket jacks, and my tough but very aggressive opponent has jammed all in. 5-10-4 on one board, 8-6-3 on the other, and the bet is $690. Obviously, the possibility exists that I am up against a bigger overpair here, and I'd hate to be up against 4-5, which has the potential to scoop me with two pair on one board and an open-ender on the other. But all that said, overpairs to both boards and bomb pots are just too powerful, so we are making this call. It would also be the lamest start to a video in the history of poker vlogging if I folded it. So I put in the chips, creating a $1,555 pot. The board runs out 3 king on the bottom and 3-4 on the top, and my opponent shows Jack 6 for a bluff. We scoop, and that is how this vlog gets started. Alright, so we are back with a couple of vlogs where I didn't actually have clearance to shoot here at Peppermill, but now I have full clearance again. My thanks to Kathy Wood and Kevin Leach for making that happen. Maybe someday I'll tell the full story as to why I believe that all occurred. I'm not ready to tell it yet, but suffice it to say, it's pretty absurd. Anyway, I'm fired up to be here. I'm even rocking Peppermill swag in honor of this return. Things have not been particularly great of late. On about a $4,000 downswing over the past 2 weeks, hoping to turn that around in this 5-10 game here today. We'd come into this vlog after several fun outings. The first taking place in downtown Reno at La Strada inside El Dorado on my dad's 75th birthday. Amazingly, within a 2-month stretch, I turned 40, my son turned 5, and my dad turned 75. There was also a day when seemingly half of the player pool, and by half I mean the guys that me and Bugsy tend to like the most, all showed up to Reno's newest restaurant, Twin Peaks. Aptly named, by the way. In this case, it was Keith, it was James, the actual professor, it was SVA, Gary, Lauren, and the original Truckee Dave. And
Slick is here, and I'm doing it, and I want to continue to do it.
Anyway, as for this session, it would come on table 1 at Peppermill, starting a little before 11 a.m. And the first hand would come when we get an under-the-gun limp, and it folds to me on the button with Wayne Gretzky. I make it 40, and the under-the-gun limper is my only caller. So at 95 in, I come out of the gate flopping top set on 9-3-4, 2 clubs. Check to me, and in spots like this, I like to make a bet that looks weak, and in this case, I just bet another $40. Doesn't take too long for me to get action on it. So with 175 in, the turn is an offsuit ace, and he checks a second time. This time I come out and bet 100, knowing that he's capable of calling me on the flop with hands like ace-king and ace-queen. And sure enough, that $100 bet gets called pretty quickly. So with 375 in, the river is an offsuit 7, and he checks. Obviously, I'm not getting any more action from draws, and if he has 5-6, he's trying to check raise. I didn't think that if he had ace-deuce of clubs here, that he was going to call a big river bet from me. Too tough an opponent. So with that in mind, I would just size down in an effort to get more of his range to pay off, making it 150. And after giving it some thought, he does just that, creating a $675 pot. I show my hand, and he mucks. We then get an example in a bomb pot of something that I like and something I hate. Credit to the dealer Carla for stacking the pot during the free moments in the hand. A lot of dealers don't do that, but it makes the whole process so much easier and faster. The informal rule that I continue to say should be the case is no one should put red chips in a bomb pot unless you have nothing else. They just slow the chopping process way down. There's too many damn red chips on the table anyway. Next hand, I'd raise to 40 over a pair of limps. Both of them, and the player in the rock on the button, make the call. So with 160 in, we go 4 ways to Jack 6-4, 2 hearts, which is the opposite of a bad flop for me. Check to me, and I bet 75 from middle position 1. The button is the loosest player at the table. And true to form, he's my only caller. So with 310 in the pot, the turn is the 6 of clubs. If he has a heart draw, or a jack, I'm getting called here the vast majority of the time. So, obviously hoping that he does, I bet 150, and I think it became pretty clear that he didn't, as he mucks after only a few seconds. If I had to guess, I'd say that he probably had a hand like pocket eights in a spot like that, taking that line. I remember reading what I thought was a really good vlog comment late last year about semi-bluffing your big draws being a much less optimal play than kind of bluffing the top part of your folding range, if you will. Now, the simple question, is your opponent capable of ever bet folding, is often the better question to ask. And it's what I was asking in this next hand. But the aforementioned comment, I still thought was worth thinking about. MP1 is the guy I played the last hand against, and he opens to 35. I have ace 9 of spades in the cutoff and make the call. Big blind comes in as well. So with 115 in, the flop is jack 7-3, 2 spades. MP1 fires 60 here, and I make this call as he's not the type that's going to be going out here with a big pair if I decide to raise. Big blind folds, and with 235 in, the turn is the 8 of clubs. So I have added a straight draw and plan on calling most reasonably sized bets. He puts in $110, and in my mind, that's certainly reasonable. The one thing I wasn't sure about was what I would do if I hit an ace on the river and he bets big. Couldn't really decide that, but it would not come into play. The river pairs the 7, and now he checks. So is this a card for me to bluff? I think it's actually a terrible bluffing card because it's so easy for a pair of jacks to still be the best hand here. And he's not the type that would want to fold a pair in a spot like this. And the draws have missed, and it certainly looks like that I do have a draw, which obviously is the case. There are some opponents where I would definitely try it, kind of out of principle. But in this case, I don't. I just check back, and he turns over jack 10 offsuit and would take down the pot. I do think that it was a good give up. About a half an hour later, I'd win a small pot and would end up in the rock. And would look down at 8 deuce. 38% of the time in the winner's straddle, you look down at 8 deuce. Every time. This is a mid-session update. I have accomplished something that I thought unaccomplishable. And yes, it happened about a month ago. And that is solving a Wordle in a single guess.
Sometimes I feel like all is lost, but I know it's not true. I wanna put up all my walls cause I'm not in the mood, but then I cut myself off from the rest of the room. I know that time can heal it all if you're patient and soon.
9 players are in on a double board hold'em bomb pot. 9 out of 10 times in bomb pots, you will know before seeing the flops if you have a chance to win. There's that one time in 10 where 7 deuce off will manage to hit something on both boards, but for the most part, you need premium hands to be able to continue and maneuver your way through these bomb pots. And I had close to one here. Ace 4 of spades. And with 225 in, I flop aces and the nut flush draw on one of the boards and top pair on the other. I am on the button in this hand and watch the player in the +1 position bet out for 100. Everyone folds and it's on me. So should I raise? You could definitely make an argument for it. I didn't think it was going to be the most optimal play with that monotone club flop out there. So I gave it some thought, but ultimately would decide to just call. And with 425 in, the king of clubs hits the bottom with a red queen on top, and he checks. I didn't find it all that likely that I could be ahead on both boards here at this point, but how could I possibly be behind on both boards? I fire 150. He calls fairly quickly. And with 725 in, the 10 of diamonds comes on the bottom with the 3 of hearts on top. And now he bets out a little over half pot, making it 400. So once again, I brick my nut spade draw. But if he flopped a flush on top, this has become a pretty good spot for him to try to put pressure on me to get a fold and win both boards. And how many hands have me beat on both boards? Not even pocket kings does that. There's pocket 10s, pocket 3s, ace 3, 3-5 of clubs, and maybe something I'm forgetting. And I'm up against an opponent capable of being pretty aggressive, so I make the call, creating a $1,525 pot, and I get shown pocket 10s for the one-outer. It's actually the second one-outer in a bomb pot that I've lost, each of which were about the same size the past week. The first coming against Crazy Joe Namath had a hand where he not one-outed me. I probably would have scooped because I don't think he was calling a big river bet, considering he had absolutely nothing on the other board. Anyway, none of that matters here. The important part is my hot start completely nullified as we go from being up to being stuck in not much time. The next hand, I'd get a late start filming. But hey, what can I tell you? I was busy cruising. I'm MP2 with the rock, and we get a $25 raise from the low jack. Big blind comes in as well. So with 75 in, the flop comes out queen 3-5 with 2 spades. Big blind checks, and I semi-bluff my draw this time, making it 50. To my surprise, the low jack, who isn't going to give me action without a big hand, makes this call. Big blind folds. So with 175 in, the turn is a beautiful offsuit deuce. I go ahead and bet right out with it, making it 110. I expected a fold here a lot of the time, but I don't get one. In fact, the opposite. He raises, making it $315. Obviously music to my ears. It's an easy jam all in. That amounts to $710 total, and he snap calls. So we have a $1,600 pot, and it is a big time cooler, as I might have expected. And I am not out of the woods in it at all. He shows ace 4 of spades. He's got the straight and the nut flush draw. We run it twice, 2 rivers. I hold on the first, and I am going to need you to stop what you're doing and jam that like button to increase my chances of holding on the second, because obviously that helps. At this point, it's just science. No spade on either board, so it's easy come, easy go in this 10-minute stretch at Peppermill, as no one can hit a nut spade draw in this game, be it me or my opponents. I was then in the rock, and once again, would pick up 8 deuce. We didn't see the man who beat me by making a club royal flush when I had 4 queens last year bust someone else when he made a club king high straight flush this time. And that just happens to be local legend Bomb Pot Blue. He would actually make 2 straight flushes on the day, by the way, which I found astonishing. On the Crush Live Poker podcast, Bart Hansen has said many times that one of the problems with 8-9 suited is how it can interact with ace-king. And by the way, if you're interested in live poker training from the best in the business, you can get 25% off for life by using my link in the description below. Unfortunately for a player named Jason, he learned that lesson the hard way, on a 10 Jack Queen board, getting felted in the process. I wasn't quite as unlucky, but I still lost about $200 as I was in there with Jack 10 and had to make a pretty tough fold getting away from the hand to avoid any further damage. The world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock, seen here talking to Kayla, has been in the game since it started. And he has played remarkably few hands on this day, probably as few as I've ever seen him play. Anyway, I look down at pocket aces in the +1 position, making it 35. MP2 calls, and Shamrock defends the rock in the big blind. So the 105 in, we go 3 ways to 4, 5, 7 rainbow. And to my amazement, because I rarely ever see this from him, Ken just blasts out for 125, overbetting the pot. In my experience, when you raise and overbet with one pair, it doesn't do a ton of good. You're pushing out his semi-bluffs and building the pot up for his monsters. That doesn't mean you can't do it here, but instinctively, I tend not to in most spots. So I just call, and the other player folds. So I am really hoping that a one-liner does not present itself as we go to the turn. I'm really thinking we could use a high blank here, and with 355 in, as you might expect, the turn comes a 3. Now he bets again, but a lot smaller than you might think. Only betting 150. So I can definitely call here, not expecting him to follow through with the bluff on the river too often. And with 655 in, that card is a pretty good blank. It's the 9 of diamonds. And this time he fires $375. The idea of one pair being good here is pretty slim, though it is a pretty polarizing bet. I just don't think this is a bluff often enough to call with one pair here, so I do indeed fold the hand. And it turns out that the bet was not a bluff. As he says, good fold, I had you, showing pocket freaking kings that somehow did not 3-bet me pre-flop, and I fold to what was a value bet. Just not the one that I don't think any of us could have possibly expected. I have to point out, though I don't expect you to believe me, I did actually consider that he was doing this exact thing with kings. I did think about it while I was on the river there before I folded my hand, but I just thought it was so much less likely. Turned out I should have stuck with that read, and I think one of the clues was the $150 turn bet as to how I could have assessed that that should have been a call. But oftentimes, making the wrong decision in spots like that can be the difference from a really good session and just an average one. That was then followed up by by me raising pocket jacks and value betting them for 2 streets on a 7-high board, and I would just get called down the entire way by pocket kings again. Apparently no one 3-bets kings in this lineup. Pretty bizarre. So an up and down day, still a profitable one, just a much smaller profit than I kind of felt it should have been. All right, wrapping this session up at about 5 o'clock after starting at about 10 a.m. as I want to hit up a workout at the gym. But it felt like a day in which I was going to either book a big win or a big loss, given how some of these pots were playing out. Instead, it was option number 3, a small win of $280 on this day. It used to be kind of an accomplishment to book wins of this size years ago, as I've talked about with my old buddy Cordell Howard. No longer shouting out the Southern California casino he's in, but shouting out the Northern California casino that he now deals at, Grayton Casino. But now it doesn't really feel as good booking wins like that, and obviously if I had managed to find a call in that hand with the pocket aces against the beast that is the world's most dangerous man, I might have been able to, I certainly would have had a much better day. But I think that hand will get a lot of discussion in terms of what should have been done there. Should I have raised the flop? Should I have called the river? How I didn't get re-raised pre-flop is beyond me, but sometimes a lot of things in this game are beyond me, and this game is as tight and as tough as it's ever been, I think, right now. So grinding out wins this year is not going to be easy, but I still have every intention of doing it. All right, with vlog video back up and running, a cool new announcement to be able to make here on this channel. Everything that I've ever promoted here is something that, if you are a winning poker player, will make you more money. I don't try to promote revenge range t-shirts or some crap like that. No, the stuff that I promote, I actually use myself and has actually helped my game. And the newest thing that is on that list is the FASTROLL app. Now listen, if you play a lot of poker, you probably want to remember the most significant hands of your career. And there really has not been any app up until now that gives you the ability to catalog those hands and search back through them and refer to them quite in the way that this app has. There have been some other apps in the past where it's just been incredibly tedious in terms of inputting all the information. But the guys that developed the FASTROLL app, they are poker players themselves, and they know exactly what you need in there and what you don't and how to speed the entire process up. So I've been using this app now, and it's been truly tremendous. It's going to be great to have to remember great hands that I've vlogged and things of that nature. So I would highly recommend downloading that app right now from the App Store. It's available on Apple and Android. And if you use promo code DEACH at checkout, you get 1 month free with your year subscription. So check it out. It's a long time coming. There has not been an app like this before. The FASTROLL app. Go give it a shot today. Hit those like and subscribe buttons. It's great for this channel. It's good to be back up and rolling. And we'll see you back here next time.